Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Cloud Architects podcast. Today with more AI. And not that he's not intelligent, but there's nothing artificial about Warren. Warren, lovely to see you again on the podcast, mate.
Yes, you're getting better and better at this. So good to be here.
Well, we've had a few introductions that we've been working on in your absence, so that actually we can be polished. And Chris and I have been working hard at this, haven't we, Chris?
That's right. Trying something new off the cup every episode is kind of the motto.
Well, we've been learning that if we don't say things that engage people in the first 2 minutes, we don't get any views. And if that's you right now, choosing to stay engaged, thank you for watching this video. Actually, all jokes aside, today we have a wonderful human being. Well, he's human. We'll find out how wonderful he is. We have Philip Miller from Progress. And today I'm rather excited because we get to ask difficult questions about artificial intelligence and Gen AI and what's wrong with ... So, Philip, wonderful to have you on the show, and thank you for making the time to join us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Looking forward to it. Hopefully the questions aren't too hard and too complex. And hopefully I give a relatively coherent answer. But yeah, no, looking forward to it.
Oh, well, in preparation for this show, we had a call with Philip to try and understand what he does. And it's so in human, it was really, really interesting to us because if we set the scene around generative AI, we just know things like Chat GPT and Microsoft Copilot. And don't ask which Copilot because there's like 200 of them. There's a Copilot for Copilots, even if you don't know which Copilot you should use. And so when we approached Philip and we said, Philip, can you tell us about Copilot? And he was like, yes, I can. But did you know there's more? What? Say it's not so.
Well, I mean, that's it, right? I mean, all you need is Copilot. It's an LLM. That's all you need to know. What more do we need to know other than the fact that there might be a version 4 or a version 5 or a version whatever else?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think that's what everybody came into, certainly the hype peak last year. I don't know which month that was, but I think there was a stark realization when somebody started to say, well, let's just do everything with Gen AI. In fact, we had customers here say, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to do everything with Gen AI. Gen AI is the way forwards. All good.
No more humans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that didn't last long because
Really?
2 minutes later we were having a chat with them going, yeah, that didn't work. We're gonna try something else. What would you suggest?
Why didn't it work, Philip?
There's 3 main issues with Gen AI that I can see. One, if you want to build your own model, train your own model, things like that, it's very expensive. Yeah.
Okay.
It's very expensive, both in personnel time and actual, like, tin time, the hardware costs and things like that. Putting that to one side, because there are loads of publicly available models that have been trained on publicly available data that just work. There then becomes kind of 2 main issues, which is really getting to like the center of the technology, which is its trust and accuracy.
Right.
So we'll take the accuracy one thing. LLMs under the hood, and I'm simplifying this a lot.
Okay.
But they are weighted number generators. And what I mean by that is it's guessing the next word based on your prompt, based on the information that it has in there, and then it will guess the next word. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that, and it is a little bit smarter than that to a degree. But what that can mean is it can hallucinate. It can just imagine an answer for you. And in some cases, that can be like 1 in 5 answers can be hallucination, depending on the topic that you're asking it, depending on the depth you want to go into, depending on if it's a very precise answer to the question, so on and so forth. So there's a whole host of things you need to kind of think about in your prompting in order to get that. Which, if you're doing that, if it's hallucinating, then you have a trustworthy problem. Enterprises who are looking at this for not just your customer service chatbots or looking at generating text and things like that. So like for marketing materials, things like that. But when you're looking at it for like research purposes for pharmaceutical companies that are looking at it, when you are looking at it from a regulatory point of view,
like legal compliance,
these things really matter, that you are accurate and that you know what you're talking about.
Is that why ChatGPT no longer gives legal advice?
Well,
it used to say, I'd like a contract. I want an employment contract or a rental contract, or read through this contract and tell me what's wrong.
Yeah, it's which I always thought was a bit of a stretch. And I think that's the AI moniker that's attached to the generative AI. I think people espouse
too much trouble than it's worth, I think.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that, OpenAI or as a company started with and then backtrack on, like any other company would. I mean, I'm not defending OpenAI or anything like that, but it's very often that you backtrack on something based on the outcome of what happened. Like, it's pretty much Elon Musk's operating model. Let's do it now. Ask for forgiveness later, and then he'll backtrack on it completely if it broke. But if it didn't, he'd be like, "Hey, check that out! I told you." Just like that.
It's what I saw the best thing the other day, which is supervised fully self-driving, which I think is great.
So that was actually something I wanted to raise.
You're supervising it.
But that's a legal thing, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But now, Warren, to be fair, and if we're going to pick on Elon Musk, he was very vocal about the dangers of not understanding what AI does. And to be fair, I think, Philip, you told me earlier that we don't know how AI actually works, but we've just released it onto the world, haven't we?
Essentially, but we kind of need to take what we released versus what we think we released, and then what
I agree. I agree completely. It's the progress that we need to be careful of. And you see what I did there? It's the progress. You see what I mean? It's the progress that we need to be careful of,
Very much so. But I also think it's trying to convey that what the thing is appropriately to our customers, to everyone out there, because then there is okay, I get this now. I see where this could be applicable. If you just hand somebody a tool with a random connection and they don't know where that goes, then they're going to try and figure it out, and they're going to stumble. They're not going to be able to use it. But if you take this tool is for this purpose, for this product, for this solution, then they go, oh, okay, well, now that can be applicable in my business. This is how this could work. And that's where I think we fell down initially, I think, with generative AI. And I think if we'd have called it large language models, I think people would have been like, oh, okay, is that part of an AI? Well, it could be, but it's really just a tool to be able to help you generate content, to provide ideas, platforms for generating code or for generating collateral, or looking at things in a different way, and you can feed it information and it can do that. But we called it AI, and I think people think that it's thinking.
Why is it not AI?
Because
it's not
in my head, it's not thinking. It will sit on the shelf all day long and not do anything until you prompt it, until you tell it to do something. Yeah. And so that's the difference. I think people have in their head AI, they think Terminator, They think the AI movie with the kid that wasn't very good. They have all these different ideas of what an AI is in their head, but all of it they espouse this independent thought to it, whereas that's not what this does.
Yeah.
And it is a problem, right? Because if you take, I mean, even if you step outside of the enterprise for a second and you just take our sort of consumer daily lives, everyone is selling everything with AI today. Like, it doesn't matter if, the thing, the widget now has AI, and the widget's going to be better because it has AI. And most consumers just look at that and go, excellent, my phone is, or my device or my widget is now going to think for itself because it's got AI. But that's not the reality, right? And I think it's difficult for folks to understand that, or at least because of the marketing spin and the buzzwordiness of it, people get caught in that trap.
And don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with being excited about the new opportunities that this particular technology can deliver into the business. I think it has fantastic value and potential to offer cost savings and even new opportunities for business. But it's just understanding what the thing is in and of itself, and therefore understanding the limitations to then go, okay, that's the limitations. How can I negate as much as I can of those, round it where I need to, in order to maximize the value of my investment into this technology?
Philip, is there not a user adoption and a literacy problem around AI as well? And the reason why I ask this is we have seen Copilot adoption figures where Copilot's rolled out to everyone in the enterprise, and we get told, very much like Teams was at the beginning, hey, here's this new thing that's going to make your lives better. And we see an initial spike for a couple of weeks while people type things into prompts and then, okay, what do I do next? As opposed to being told, this is what AI can do, and these are the kinds of problems you can solve with AI, but it's not going to think for you. And Warren's got this amazing quote that it's a co-pilot, not an autopilot.
Very much so. Yeah.
But where is that piece of education?
There is that. And we as humans aren't very good at that. It takes sometimes a long time for us to have that realization that this thing's going to be transformational in the way that you work and think and do things. Think of the mobile phone and how long that took to actually get adopted from. I remember buying my first mobile phone, and the question I had from someone was, well, why do you need that?
It is.
Well, now if I leave the house without it, I turn around and come back again.
That's right. You feel naked.
How else would you know the number of someone you want to call? Because let's be real, we don't remember numbers anymore. We just put them on our phone.
And with AI, there is that education. There is definitely that education piece. But again, I think a lot of companies do this one and done. Here's the training for this new product. Go out and use it. And you're like, right, okay, but how do I do this? And what about this? And they try it. They get stuck. There isn't the support necessarily around it in order for them to solve the problem. They then go back to the old way of working because that works. So I can't wait around for this. I need to continue doing business. And they forget about it. It takes, on average, about 66 days to break a habit. Yeah. So
describing my journey with various AI and LLM tools here. The only problem is I get reminded at the end of every month when all the bills come off my credit card. I'm like, oh, I forgot to cancel that thing that I tested out for 3 days.
Yeah. But so if you're so used to doing something one way, then using a generative AI to do it the other way, you're going to have to break your own habits, your own human habits. And that's when I say, like, the one and done training model isn't the right fit for this. It's definitely not the right fit for the technology space anyway, because it moves so fast and the feature and the functionality improves all the time. And so you really need to have in your business this agile, iterative approach to Gen AI where, yeah, okay, we've got people, you want to try it. Okay, fine, go and try it. Put it in a sandbox, see what works, see what doesn't. See if it's adopted, see if users are happy with it. Okay, how are they using it? Why are they using it? Okay, can we steer towards that? It's that type of approach, I think, that companies need to do, rather than, like I say, just going, here it is. Like, you know, to be fair to a lot of them, Copilot included, here's Copilot for Excel. Brilliant. Done. Thanks very much. I'll see you later.
Why don't I just need Copilot, actually? So why do I need other models? And why do I not just need a flavor of a Copilot?
I think you got to be careful about the way you talk about it. You know, something that we've been saying is around the end user, or around how people are adopting it sort of in companies to do specific things like their job, those sorts of things. But we must remember that AI or large language models, et cetera, is more of a platform thing. It's not, I mean, like when you think about web, that's a platform. You know, mobile became a platform. So the invention of the smartphone turned that in mobile into a platform. Things became a mobile shopping, mobile everything, right? So when you think about AI or large language models being integrated into products, it's not necessarily just asking something a question. It's how we interact with, and this blog that I'm like, I've got it here on the side here and I'm like reading it, and you know, like how RAG works and how you can take different pieces of data from different places and sort of put them together. And, you know, like on that last podcast we just recently did, you know, with our version of the IRS here in South Africa, they're going to be using it so that they can have an infinite amount of auditors doing a specific thing. So it's more around a platform now, as Nick, and that's exactly answering your question, is using a different model for a different thing, stringing them all together and getting this. I mean, this Open Devon thing, I don't know if you've seen Open Devon, Philip.
No,
so Open Devon, you can just Google it.
I will. Yeah.
It's a project that these dudes have started to replace your development team. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a bunch of different agents. Okay. Runs in a Docker container, has access to a terminal. It's got like this beautiful little web interface. So there's like a web interface that has access to the shell. And then you've got like a Visual Studio Code on the other side. Yeah. And then you've got a chatbot. But you sort of say what you wanted to do, and it starts to build a plan. This is where I think we should start. And I think we should hand it over to my buddy over here, which is just another one. And then this guy hands it over to this buddy, and this guy tests it. And then that guy hands it over back to the project manager. And so it's not necessarily like, I mean, I actually personally, and I know I work for Microsoft, it's probably a bad thing for me to say, but like, I don't think I've ever used Word for Copilot for Word. Like, it hasn't helped me. It hasn't helped me that much. I mean, I use the Outlook one a lot so that it can summarize my emails. That helps. That helps a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely, like you're saying there, it's definitely the user versus the tool.
Yeah.
And so like
that whole perspective,
yeah, we have a lot of publishing customers. And so we've been talking to them 2-3 years now, because publishing doesn't necessarily move as quick as some would like from the technology point of view. And we've been talking to them about smarter content, and this is kind of goes into then the Gen AI stuff. So this was before everybody was coming up with RAG. We were saying, look, you've got your data stored in our database in MarkLogic. You've got it in XML, so it is machine readable. Yeah, you can put it out to whoever you want. It's machine readable. But for the future of publishing, you need to change. You need to become more dynamic. You need to offer your customers what they're looking for rather than this is the thing, read it, and then you'll find the answer. Yeah. And so we've been talking to them for ages about making your content semantically linked.
That's cool.
So what does that mean for the other humans listening to this podcast?
Okay. So all of your data has not only metadata about the data, so the time, date, author, so on and so forth, but it has data inside those documents. And at the moment, it's machine readable, as in you can use an OCR package to read the characters on there, but that's it. It's not machine interpretable. The machine doesn't have any context around that data. It can't infer meaning or insight because it doesn't know anything about those words. What we do with our sister technology, which is Semaphore, is go into the document itself and analyze the text to auto classify the information that's inside the document, to tag it with relevant concepts, synonyms, alternative labels, even different languages and things like that. And then put those into a knowledge model of the data. And then we then semantically search that with Mark Logic. But what that allows us to do, there's a famous demo that I've seen too many times in here, but it really does sort of kind of speak to the thing, which is, here's an article that we've pulled from, it was, I think, Wikipedia, and it is all about a space mission. And it talks about the Sea of Tranquility, and it gives Buzz Aldrin in there, and Neil Armstrong, and Michael Scott, and all of these different things, but it never mentions the word Apollo 11. So currently, if you were searching that during the normal search that everybody has, you search for Apollo 11, that document would never come up. But by having that additional information in an envelope around the data itself, you can then go, right, show me information about Apollo 11. It will, by a rules-based approach, classify that and say, because it contains Michael Scott, because it contains Buzz Aldrin, because it talks about the Sea of Tranquility, and it's whatever it is, 1969, and it was 3 days and so many hours and so on and so forth. This is Apollo 11. This article, even though it never mentions the word Apollo 11, is about Apollo 11. And so you are changing your data from machine readable to machine interpretable. And that's then when Gen AI came out, I sat down with one of my architects, with one of my partners, and basically said, look, guys, I've got an idea. And I'm not technical, by the way. I know I'm using some big fancy words, but really I'm not technical. And I had to say to them, look, I have an idea. I think this might work. My architect had the same idea. And so we got together and said, right, well, let's look at this. And then this became what is now known, we now found out, was RAG-based architecture. So this is the Retrieval Augmented Generation, which is taking that knowledge model from your prompt, taking that knowledge model and saying, right, apply that to my prompt, say to the Gen AI, read this information from my knowledge model, the part of the data, and then respond to the prompt. And then that's where we found an improvement in the accuracy, the trustworthiness, and in some cases cost, because we don't have to show it all of the data. We're just showing it the most relevant.
Yeah. That's so cool.
So yeah, it was a very cool thing to kind of stumble upon, but also kind of, and we've had other customers come to us. What's been really satisfying is actually having customers come to us going, we have both of your products and we have done this independently of you.
That's amazing.
Come up with the same solution. So we're like, this must be some sort of path of least resistance then.
Yeah.
And it must have something in it. And so yeah, we've been really lucky to have these customers that have these people that really understand the Gen AI and its limitations, but also then our products and how they can work in conjunction with them. And to Warren's point about a platform, that is exactly what I've been saying to my customers and end users is what you should be building is a platform, and it starts off with having your data in an accessible, future extensible, agile platform. That means that it doesn't matter what LLM you're using, you can still use this data. You're not having to revector it or anything like that. You can just take this data and then apply it to any model. And like I say, we've got a demo that we're working on at the moment, which we're hoping to have in the near future, which will show the tech using 3 different LLMs to generate responses.
That's cool.
But yeah,
I have a question. So we talked about this concept of RAG. Is that similar to what Microsoft are calling grounding within Copilot? So you're essentially feeding it information to make it more reliable, or at least less in the hallucinations.
Yeah, it's similar. I think. Okay. I think there's probably some product differences. You'll have to forgive me. I know Copilot at the user level, not at the architectural level. But you know, our approach is you have a multi-model database. To take brand names out of it, let's do that. You take a multi-model database, which means it doesn't matter whether it's structured data, rows and columns. You know, the thing that most people are used to seeing data in, or whether it's PDF or XML or JSON documents. You can just store that in a multi-model database, and then you take this semantic platform and then apply those semantic rules. And you know, those rules can be based on like ontologies and taxonomies, which are just fancy ways of saying the words mean this to the business or to an industry. So a good one is SNOMED, medical ontology. These words have a definite definition, and they have antonyms and synonyms, and it means that not just to you, but to everyone. And so you can then apply that to your data. And so that's the real advantage of it, because I've said this to people, you are putting the most important part of your architecture front and center and scaling it to a machine level, which is the human intellect behind that data. Yeah, because again, the machine doesn't know what this thing is. You have to provide it context in order to improve the answer to that thing. And that comes from business experts in your business, subject matter experts, technical or otherwise. And that's what we're trying to enable our customers to think like. It's that old AI won't replace you, it'll be the human using the AI. Yeah. And so what we're saying is, well, you know, that human that can only review like legal documents, say for instance, we got one customer who's like, they can review like maybe 200 different documents a day. Well, this system will do 20,000 documents a day and have the same or better results because it's working on that human understanding of that data applied at scale.
So it sounds like what you're saying very much from a how do I get started, or how do we make the most of this data estate that we have? You know, and we're already at the point where we're joking about this. Is like, how do you use Copilot or AI? Well, get your data estate in order, right? And it's become quite a sort of, but it sounds very much like you're saying that the data estate is obviously really important and foundational to making the most use of all of this.
You can do it as an individual, right? You can think of it like this. You can do it on a document level as an individual. Write me a presentation based on this PDF document, say for instance, and then you shove the PDF document in. it reads the PDF document and then it gives you a presentation. You can do it in VBA, say, and export it from there. I know that I think Copilot now allows you to do it straight in the tool and just generates you a PPT file. But what we're talking about is at scale. What we're talking about are these enterprise customers who want to look at an entire catalog of research and find the most relevant data in there so that they can say to their research scientists, you know, that question you had about our corpus of research, here's all of the most relevant information about it. So feed that to the LLM with your question about that research. And that's the thing is it's taking that approach. Now, there's still stuff you need to do in and around that. So, you know, look at the prompts that come back. And this is one of the things that we do as well is when the prompt comes back, we can look back at the knowledge model and see, one, does it exist? Yes, it does. Okay. It's not hallucinated. There is the information is in there somewhere. But two, store the responses so that you can look at that response and say, was that a good response? Yes or no? How good was it? X, Y, Z, and then feed that back into the model and then say, right, now pass that through. So you're improving your results as you go through, or hopefully improving your results as you go through. Like I say, we can, with our system, we're able to explain, because it's rules-based approach, and we have temporal features in our platform to monitor data, when we knew it, how we knew it, who changed it, why did it have this applied to it, so on and so forth. I say to people, I can explain to you 90% of the reason why the AI gave the answer. Like that last 10% is probably 90% of the work of explaining AI, because it goes into that brain where we don't understand how it gets those answers, because there are too many dimensions for it to for us to understand.
Philip, it sounds like we are on the verge of having something amazingly useful. However, we are very much on the hype curve.
Oh,
like so much on the hype curve, right?
100%. 100%. This isn't a mainstream thing yet. And organizations need to be mindful of that. And this is when that excitement can sometimes trip people up. Yeah, I'm going to do so much with this. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to revolutionize our entire business. And you're like, whoa. Why don't you start off with something small but valuable to your business? One that takes a long time, let's say, for a human to do it, but thinking about it, if a machine could process that and then deliver that answer, that human could do it in 80% less time, say, for instance. And you have 100 people doing that in your organization. Okay, I could put a pound note value or a dollar value to that and say, this is how much your business could save if it did this project. Oh, okay, this is really useful to my organization. And start off with that approach.
That sounds an awful lot like the promise of RPA, right? Robotic process automation. And that entire industry was predicated around, I can save you so much time by automating all these tasks. But then we had to go and figure out how to automate these tasks. And the answers or the inputs weren't quite binary and black and white. And there needed to be some definition of things. And it sounds like we a little bit there again, where, you know, we had the RPA hype, and we need robots for everything, and everyone's going to lose their jobs. And we're hearing the same thing again. Everyone's going to lose their jobs. Although it sounds like what we are facing is not everyone's going to lose their jobs, but you need to be literate. If you know how to type, you know how to use a productivity package like a Microsoft or a Google derivative or something else. So you need to be literate in that. And you need to be literate in AI prompting or LLM prompting, or prompting the model that you're going to use for the result that you want as part of your adult computer literacy or even career literacy. Is that fair?
I would say that you need to start off sooner than being an adult. I think kids should be playing around with this. There is a fear in education that, oh, if we show kids this, they'll never learn anything. I'm like, well, that was the same when the calculator came out. I'm pretty sure someone said to some Greek person, abacus is going to ruin math. Yeah. It's not about restricting the tools. It's actually about giving children access in supervised fashion to these tools so that they can learn how to use them, so that when they graduate into the working world, they're coming up with this, and they'll think of stuff. I don't think of half the stuff my kids think about when even just using my phone. Yeah. And that can be the same with AI. Now, short term for businesses, yes, improve your literacy, read about these things. But it goes back to your point when you were saying it there, like robotic process automation, where they said everything needs to change, everything needs to. No. What we're saying is start small with a subset or a corpus or a one particular thing that you want to do, and then make change based on that. And that will very quickly inspire others, because they'll see, oh wow, that really worked. That was really good. That was really useful to me. One thing we're looking at doing is building a documentation bot. That's all it is. It's basically to say, tell me how to make a query in MarkLogic. Okay, fine. It will tell you how to make a query in MarkLogic. Yeah. But that's the initial thing, and then it's right. Okay, so how can we apply that elsewhere in the business? How can we use that in customer service, in our support system, in our sales people? Like, how can we then go, right, we've tested it internally, let's get it out to customers. And these things aren't measured in like years, these projects. It's like, let's do it in weeks. Let's not wait flat, and let's do it in weeks. Let's build it. Let's get it out the door, test it. Does it work? Yes, it does. Can it be improved? Of course. Okay, make those improvements and move on. It's the desire and the appetite around the business for change that will ultimately decide whether or not they take advantage of not just the hype, but actually then the value that comes out of the back of it.
As a comment, I wanted to say that AI came out and we looked at it with awe. Actually, let me take a step back. ChatGPT hit the world. We looked at it with awe and wonder. We're like, oh, AI is here. And then we paused and we said, well, what should I do with it? What can I do with it? And we have so much education going on in the various public-facing AI models, or LLMs, even if we're going to be specific, to say, this is how you could use the model. And there's so much on Instagram and on YouTube around, this is how you do something predictable with your prompt in order to get a predictable result. And it seems like we are at the cusp of trying to figure out, well, it could be useful. And if somebody shows me enough, I'll know how to use it. And it won't just be this prompt blinking at me where I'm thinking, well, what do I do now? For me, it's very much like the consumer version, or even the enterprise version of PowerShell, where PowerShell came out, we installed it, and it was like, I can do all these things, but what should I do? And you sat there with that flashing prompt, and then you closed it, so you didn't have to look at it anymore.
Yeah, it's that preceding of ideas for people. It's taking them, and it goes to education, isn't it? Like, you teach people about concepts in education. You don't necessarily teach people about the application of those concepts. But I think it's so large a topic that I think you need to teach both. I think you need to teach, right, this is the concept behind AI and what it can do. And oh, by the way, I'm going to walk you through how you would create something that is ubiquitous to any business. It's one of the reasons why I picked the documentation thing, because every business has this like technical / business barrier to entry for their product or service, where people have to try and understand it. Well, if you can ask it in a natural language fashion, which is another thing people have to change, because I remember when ChatGPT first came out, I started using it like Google. Keyword search. Yeah.
Right.
Because that's how we see a search bar now. Even now, I guarantee you see any search bar outside of an LLM model, you're using a keyword search because we've trained in our brains.
Yeah.
Because when Google or search engines first came out, we were asking those natural language questions and it didn't work. We were like, well, maybe if I take out how and I and can and so on and so forth, and I'm just left with the keyword, okay, fine, I'll put that in. And so you're going to have to train that into people. And it's just an interesting.
Now it's gotten to the point where it's the other way around. Where it's like it's too much now, and now people the queries are getting too expensive. So it's like I find myself sometimes I write like a full paragraph, and I'm like, I'm just repeating myself. I take it out. It's like, okay, don't do that, because I've just now. Or you can even put it in different order, and your answer will be different. Because it's trying to, predict the word or which thing comes next and why. So sometimes having a too long a paragraph now is like a mess as well.
Yeah, it's and again that's that prompt. That's how to use the tool, isn't it? That's the understanding of interacting with that tool and having that knowledge and saying, oh, okay, yeah, that probably is a little bit too long or complicated, or I've gone off in this direction and I've influenced the AI myself, which I always find fascinating that I'm doing that as a human being to a piece of technology at the individual level.
2 plus 2 is 5.
There's that. There's that. But it's that influence that you have as a human being to say, no, I meant this. Oh, I meant that. Or, no, you need to go into more detail. If you start to have that conversation, and I think this is the thing that goes to that prompt thing. Like, if you start off small, you can start influencing the prompt as you go down.
Yes.
And start shaping it into kind of what you want. If you think I'm just going to write this huge great big prompt and then I'm going to put it in there and I'm going to hope that it's going to be right, but then I'm like, oh, that's not right, I'll try another prompt. You're like, well, actually, if you just said I've got an idea, what could I do? Okay, give me. I had a great one with it, which was I wrote this query in Power Query for Excel. And I wrote it 2 years ago, and I had to change something in there. It was a date, I think, combination, whatever. I just couldn't remember that part because I never used that. I looked it up and I'd never used it again. And I was kind of looking it up online. I was like, why am I doing this? I'll just throw it into ChatGPT. So I threw it into ChatGPT. Can you explain to me where in this is the date function? And it went, well, it's here. And I went, okay, so how do I change that so it reflects this new date function? And they were like, you just need to change this bit. Okay, well, what is that whole query then? And then it gave me the whole query, put it into Excel, and away you go. Job done. And it was just because I kind of stopped myself for a minute and thought, let's break it down to the most simple thing and then build up from there. So yeah, it's like I say, interesting times for people using tools and changing the way that they're working and things like that. I think we're always scared, we're always nervous. There's the whole rise of the Terminator thing that's on a news broadcast somewhere, and somebody's angry that it could replace all of us, and so on and so forth. And you're kind of like, well, one, this isn't it. This is not the T1000. This isn't the T2. This is the very start of that journey.
Oh, Jesus, it wouldn't even plagiarize a document for me.
Yeah.
Or we're not even at the stage of old man shakes fist at cloud.
Yeah. Vernon loves incriminating himself.
No, I'm like, So to be honest, it was more like one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, let's see how good this word for Copilot can be. Well, Copilot for Word thing can be. I have a document and it's terribly formatted. Like that. Style sheets are completely wrong. Headings are wrong. Paragraphs are wrong. So I'm like, hi, I need to rewrite this document. Oh, no, I can't do that for you. But what? What do I pay you for?
Why? What
do I pay your license for? I mean, really. But so there's a lot of things that it can't do, and I think that there's also that misconception around. And I guess that's something that we haven't really spoken about is, so there's just some things it cannot do. Like, as much as it can try, certain models, like we said, certain models can't do math. I mean, like GPT 3.5 doesn't do math. Great. Like it's like a dunce when it comes to certain maths problems. GPT-4 is better at it and those sorts of things. And so there's some things that it's just never ever going to do. So ideally, I mean, like when I see things, it's like you said, start off small. I mean, I would even just put a button somewhere that says, click this magic button, something like with what you guys have got, or semantic kernel or something. Put a button there, and that button, when you click it, it goes and it invokes the LLM. It injects the prompt the way we want it to be injected, and it pulls the information out. So it's almost removing the user oopsie. Like, being a prompt engineer is hard. I mean, it's not an easy thing to speak English. for lack of a better word, I mean, you got to speak English to the thing, right? So, have a button that says, go do this thing. And then it goes and it does it,
I always think that it should be prompt architect rather than an engineer. And the only reason I say that is because the architect should provide a pathway for users to build their prompts. But everybody should be a prompt engineer.
Yeah.
It should be you should eventually have it as a part
conversation,
of daily cadence with the Gen AI to improve your business. Whereas if you have that prompt engineer, well, that's his job. So I'll send him my question and then he can query it. Well, all you're doing there in that situation is
start getting better.
Yeah, you're just passing one thing to another. You're not actually improving your own workflow. Whereas if you think of it as a prompt architect that says, right, as a business, we can prompt in this fashion. We have these particular guidelines that we follow to make us compliant, and or that we're not sending it how to make XYZ deadly device or something. And we're keeping legal and stuff like that in there. But then the users themselves are engineering those prompts based on that. I think that's when, one, the literacy will improve around the tools, but two, the way of thinking and the value that they get as an individual will improve in that as well. So yeah, I prefer the term prompt architect rather than prompt engineer. But that might just be a semantic thing. But yeah, that's just for me.
Yeah, I like it. I like that too. Prompt architect sounds nicer. I do. I like that too.
We want to be conscious of time and conscious of your time. We really appreciate having you on and really enjoyed the conversation. But before we let you go, is there anything that you want to plug, or social media? Do you want to be found? How can you be found? Do you want to shout out to anything?
Hey, look, we've got a growing community of MarkLogic developers and engineers. We've got our community hub and forum. We have monthly events for our customers and potential MarkLogic, or progress, should I say, innovators. We would love for people to join us there if they've got ideas, if they want to speak themselves, and then they can do. And lastly, we have an ideas platform, which is, I think, really cool, which is our customers or our partners can go onto this ideas platform and submit their own ideas of how to improve our platform. And then people can vote on them, they can comment on them, they can say, oh, that's a great idea, but maybe we could do this. And we've started to get some ideas. Some ideas are already going into development. We only launched this in January, and we've got our first, I think, potential feature that will come out of it in the near future. And so, we're really encouraging people to get a part, join us in the community, but really submit those ideas for future consideration. So,
excellent. Is that all sort of on the progress.com website, or there's some specific URLs for that?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to progress.com and look at the product forums, but there's a long URL that I'll put in the chat that maybe we can include in the in there. I'll see if I can do that there for you. That's where you'll find pretty much all of our forum and stuff like that. But they also have access to our hub there. And things like that. So yeah, check it out.
Awesome. That's awesome. Great. Yeah, we'll definitely put all of that, summarize all of that into the show notes for everyone who are watching or listening. And yeah, thank you again for joining us. In the start of your day. We're just doing this a little time zone shuffle. But much appreciate your time, and
thanks very much for having me. It was a great conversation, Warren, Nicholas, and Chris. Yeah, all good. Nice to meet you guys. It's been really interesting, and hope we can maybe do this again in the future.
Oh yeah. I think everything's going to move so quickly that if we have to have this conversation next month, there's chances are there's going to be something else like super crazy, like Elon Musk's going to have somebody else upset, and that's going to be something else for us to talk about.
Yeah, there's a great bit of research at the moment that's going on internally around adding vector search into our platform as well, and there's also research around data compression. And how that works in LLMs and how it's compressed and why it's compressed, but what you lose in that compression as well. So yeah, some really good interesting things on that.
Philip, this has been one of those shows that I think is going to be foundational for our listeners, and we'd love to have you on again so that we understand where are we now, because it is a very large hype curve that we're riding, and we're definitely keen for a part 2 to this episode. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks, guys. Thanks very much.
See you soon.